Hey everybody, hey, welcome back to the 53206 cast. I'm Alex.
And I'm Meg.
And this is a podcast, Meg.
It is.
This is a podcast. This is a podcast. I'm assuming this is a podcast about We Got This?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I feel like it's nice to know that this is a podcast about reframing inner city spaces and
Yeah,
the stories we tell each other and the stories that we've been told and, correcting the narrative around inner city spaces.
Yeah, if we can get to that, that'd be great. Also, Meg, today was the third week of We Got This, and I'm always really excited when I'm not excited because it's actually like a huge bummer.
Super big bummer, yeah.
To tell kids that are there before 8 o'clock that we are full.
Yeah.
And so we had too many kids last week.
Yeah.
We didn't really drop our capacity much, but just, in case like somebody was wondering how this actually works. So, people donate throughout the year and we set a budget as a board, and that budget then says, well, we can take about whatever amount of kids because each kid costs the organization money.
Yeah.
And, then we look at the donations and are we pacing out to meet what we thought we would get, and then do we have to adjust? And so we're doing, we're more or less, it's close, but we're pretty much on track donation-wise where we want to be. Mm-hmm. But we have more kids.
Yeah.
More kids coming out. So today, first kids were there at 6:30. They love just getting there early.
I love them. Yeah. Yeah.
And we noticed that sometimes, you would get every kid that lines up gets a ticket, and then the ticket has a number on it. 1 is the first kid, and then that just helps me know, okay, we need 125 spots, whatever. So they love being there first. And the last week they mentioned, hey, we didn't get our first pick for our group. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe we should be in like number order of our tickets. Yeah. And so we started that this week, and it kind of worked. It'll work better next week because it'll be the new normal that everybody lines up in their order. But we gave out all the tickets by 7:45. So 15 minutes before we were supposed to start, gave out all the tickets. It is a big bummer, but I knew kind of going into today because we had too many last week that we were going to have to do that. Yeah. And so, we probably turned away, I was at least 30.
I snuck in 3.
Don't do that.
Yeah, I'm going to. There's going to be a few that I'm going to say, I can't say no to you. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It was only 3.
Fine.
And I took 2 of them as extras.
Right.
2 of them were in my group.
Did you want to work extra to pay for those kids? Because someone's got to pay for them.
That's true.
But good day. It was hot.
Oh my gosh,
it was so hot. It was hot on my run, and I sweat when I run. Yeah. But I don't sweat a ton. Okay. And so I know that if I'm sweating, like it's hot. Yeah. It's hot, and I'm not a very hydrated human being, so if I'm sweating, it's like it's kind of a big deal. Like it's hot.
It's kind of a big deal.
I mean, even at the end, I'm not super sweaty.
Yeah, that is weird. I feel like I was dripping. I was standing like in the alley talking with somebody, and I was like, can I just go inside? Like I was stripping, and I'm like, I feel like I look like I'm crying. I'm dripping so much.
You looked that way. Probably 2/3 of the adults that were there looked that way. Yeah. A whole bunch of the kids. Yeah. It was hot. It was hot. Yeah. It was a great opportunity to talk about adversity.
And, I love that was part of, so at the end of the garden, all the groups have a sheet that Alex figures out what we're going to talk about. And so, I started out, with the first question, which was like, I don't know what the first question was, but it has something to do with adversity. And somebody's like, what does adversity mean? Right. And so that was just like, it was a really fun, and they're like, why don't you just say it's hard or, whatever I ended up saying adversity was. And I was like, because we're learning new things. Now we can use it in a sentence. And so it was fun that like there was a few harder words in your in like benefit. Somebody was like, what does benefit mean? Great. And it was great. It was fun because then like
you're like an English teacher now.
The older kids were kind of like being like, this is what that means, and I'm like, let's use it in a sentence. And it took longer because it was so hot that I was like, let's start circle time early. Yeah. But then also nobody really wanted to talk because it was so hot. So it was good though, because it was wonderful talking about adversity. One of the girls in my group, she said that she like she just fights all the time.
Okay.
And I was like, I would have never guessed that about you. And I told
Sure.
her, I was like, you are a super good worker. Like, you didn't get into it with anyone. I find you to be a very, you know, as your bossish, I find you to be this great worker. And she, you know, because she was kind of like bragging about it. And I was like, how's that working out with school? And she's like, well, I'm on my 3rd school.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like, do you want to get better at not
Right.
fighting? You know? And she was like, maybe.
Maybe.
You know, so I feel like it was a good conversation.
Well, and whether she wants to or not, I mean, what's that called? Metacognition, when you think about your thinking.
Yeah.
You know, like having a 14-year-old who is dead set on this belief that she cannot change her mindset about anything, even though there's series and series of books all about mindset.
Yeah.
The book Mindset is about changing your mindset and how it's possible, and you can do that. And Meg, I feel like all the podcasts you send me are like people that are talking about just reframing things even differently. Yeah. Like what we were talking about something 2 nights ago. We were talking about, you were tired. You were tired, and you were like, I don't know, this isn't, you know,
I feel like I'm watering all the time. I'm always watering different garden spaces. That's my new job.
That's what it was. You were.
I was tired of watering.
You were tired of watering, and you know we through the conversation, and it was kind of relating to something else. You know, because Meg, I also get tired.
You get tired of fixing up houses. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah,
I mean. It would be ridiculous if somebody worked as much as I work and you didn't get tired. You would be a robot. You would be insane. You'd probably be a psychopath. And I'm not a psychopath.
Yeah.
And so I do get tired. Yeah. But I remember vividly, you know, when we were getting out of debt, before we had bought our first rental, that all I wanted. I remember, you know, teaching math at the alternative school. I remember being in the classroom on the 4th floor, hating everything that I was doing, and just wishing that I, you know, could go work on my own buildings, right?
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean that, like, when I'm working on my own stuff, I'm all happy. I mean, most of the time I'm like, this is awesome that I get to do this.
Yeah, when the sewer backs up.
Sure, when the sewer backs up, or I don't know, just something isn't going the way that
Christmas Eve when the
when a water heater goes out on Christmas Eve. That actually wasn't so bad.
That wasn't bad, yeah.
But you know, stuff happens, and it's not ideal.
Yeah.
But the problems are so much better.
Yeah.
And you know that if you're 12 years old, like, how do you know how to think about your thinking? You don't know. You get into patterns and you just live your life and you just do things, and there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want something more out of your life, which I think a lot of the kids probably do, because most people do, you know, if you can teach them to think about the way that their mind is working towards something like that, like the kid you're talking about, just because you're in a conflict doesn't mean you have to fight someone. And you know, as an adult, like, you can tell a kid that 100 times, but until you walk a kid through the process of maybe like actually physically thinking differently, like talking it through with them, that they may not have learned the skill, you know, to do that.
Yeah.
So, but it was hot.
It was hot.
It was hot. Yeah. You know, when I'm thinking about the garden, you know, one of the things I was super proud about today is even though it was really hot, it went very, very smoothly, very smoothly. You know, and even, you know, we had a couple of groups that, you know, came back a little early because they were, you know, similar to what you were saying, because it's, you know, normally they're out working on their projects for an hour and a half. Yeah. And I can understand an hour into it, you're exhausted. Yeah. And, you know, you don't want to be doing it anymore. Yeah. You want to be doing anything other than what you're doing. Yeah. But overall, very, very smooth.
Yeah, I think something I'm proud of was we had a kid last week, one of our student leaders, and it's wonderful to see how many student leaders we have and how many people say, you know, how do I be that? So we have a group of, I'd say 15-ish student leader kids. Yeah.
Yeah, it rotates in and out. But I would say 15 total.
And so the kid, he was playing around a little too much last week. And so I had a talk with him, and I was like, hey, we're switching you your leader said you were playing around too much, so we're going to switch you out of that group. And it was funny because I'm like, I know exactly why he was playing around last week. He was playing around because he was with a friend. And so I was like, okay, let's make sure like to get like she's somewhere else and he is somewhere else. They both ended up to be in the same group. And I thought it was so funny because I had a talk with him and I said, you can either help her level up or you can play with her and you can not be a student leader. Like it's totally up to you. Or you can ask to be in a different group. Like those are your three options and like you get to decide. And so today the girl who he was playing around with too much, she came up to me and she's like, hey, we didn't play around at all this week. And she like, he must've like said like, hey, we can't be doing that. Sure. And I was like, it sounds like you're leveling up. And she's like, I am leveling up. And it was really cool because she does tend to play around a lot, which is why she's not one of our kind of go-to student leaders. So it was really neat that she stepped up. Yeah. Yeah. And he did too. Yeah. Yeah.
Which, a great lesson to learn when you're 15 years old. Like, hey, this didn't go great. You chose to play instead of work. Yeah. I mean, I remember when I worked at KB Toys, a toy store. Yeah. And, I worked with a really good friend of mine and this other guy, a third guy that worked there, he was really tall. I just remember him being because a lot of times you had to reach things on the top shelf, and he was very good at reaching things. Yeah. And he got a big raise, like the biggest raise in KB Toys history for a sales associate. And I did not get a very big raise. Yeah. And it made sense. It made sense because we were just screwing around most of the time, which is fine when you're 16 years old. Yeah. But it's
good to know. It's good to know, like, either you're going to level up or you're not going to level up.
It was an excellent lesson to learn as a 16-year-old and not a 41-year-old. Yeah. So, very true. Very, very good. Yeah. Meg, what are you looking forward to? So we're a quarter of the way done. Oh. Already. Okay. Wow. It's going by quick. Huh. Are you anything that you're looking forward to in the next couple of weeks?
Well, I was very excited. So last week we planted sunflowers and they're already sprouting.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that was really cool. We went back to the space, made sure it doesn't get mowed, made sure like there's the barrier, it was in place because it fell. And I was like, that's fine. We'll go back. We'll go there. We'll water. We'll, just make sure. But it was really neat to like show some of the kids like, hey, this is already like, because the first part of our group, we planted more sunflowers in a different area. And so I was like, hey, you guys, in 1 week, like we could go back to the place we just planted and you would see that these are already sprouting. So yeah, I'm just excited for things to start to bloom. I'm excited for, we're getting a few peppers in, so that's exciting. I think the produce, I'm excited about that. Yeah, just excited to see some of the results of the hard work.
Nice. Yeah. You had a lady come out this week that grows dahlias.
Yes. Sherry. Yeah.
Oh, you want to...
Yeah, it was just exciting. So we have the whole area on 9th Street that is like the flower farm, and we have 100+ dahlias that are planted over there. And that's
a lot of dahlias.
It is a lot. And we kind of ran out of stuff to plant there. So I reached out to a lady who is already given a lot of dahlia tubers. And she was like, well, I want you guys to have show dahlia tubers. And I was kind of like, what does that mean? And she's like, it means I show them at like the fair or wherever at the Dahlia Association. I don't even know. It's something. And she was like,
good ones.
If you plant these, you can show them with the kids.
Oh.
And so I was like, that would be really cool.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So me and her planted them, and then it rained. So I was like, well, this is wonderful. So got a little bit of rain on them, and they're in the ground. Yeah.
And while you were planting them with her, you guys were having a conversation.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you. I did want to talk about this. Yeah, it was great. So we were planting. She was kind of like saying like these ones go great. Like here, these whatever. And so as we're probably like 20 minutes into just, hanging out, planting and stuff like that. And I was like, hey, just so you know, like, and cause she lives in, I think Milton, Wisconsin.
Milton. Yeah.
And so it
sounds
town.
like Middleton, which is where you're from, but it's not Middleton.
I know. Yeah. So a small town. And I was like, hey, just so you know, like, this is the poorest zip code in the state. This is the one of the most incarcerated places for people to be. And this is like, quote unquote, a bad area. but isn't it great? Because, you know, like it was Juneteenth. So like people were walking by, everyone was like excited. And she was like, yeah, it's pretty great. And, you know, so it was just so funny to like reflect on like, you know, you're sitting there, you're planting stuff, you're creating beauty, and you almost forget because our neighborhood is really great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was building a fence all week in a pretty close suburb of Milwaukee. And, you know, when you build a fence, you're outside.
Yeah.
You know, and so it's kind of like, you know, being at the garden, or I'm outside working on stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's different.
I would actually really I would like to ask you some questions,
Oh,
because
sure,
you've worked so long at the White House in the corner.
Uh-huh.
I feel like at some point it was funny at the garden today. I was like, hey, can you guys go meet at the White House at the garden? And I was like, it's not white anymore. Like, I guess the gray house, with windswept.
We'll still
smoke.
call it. I think I'm still going to call it the White House on the corner.
I like that. But you've worked so much there, like redoing the porch, redoing outside spaces. Like, I would love to hear, like, what's the difference in like people walking by or people talking to you from, you were in Tosa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely similar or more foot traffic here.
Yeah.
And I would say the people here, it's not that the people there aren't friendly, because they are. You know, they're nice. They'll stop and talk to you. And that guy that had the husky,
okay,
we saw him a couple of times.
Yeah.
But I would say, you know, if they're a 7 on the friendliness scale, I mean, people here are like a 9, or like a 9.5.
Yeah. Did you get stopped working a lot in Tosa?
Not as much.
Okay, because you get stopped working
all the time.
Yeah.
Like, to the point where it's like, I really just got to get something done here. I would love to stand and chat with you, which is fine.
Yeah.
But but yeah, I would say, which it just goes. You know, I guess, you know, you kind of mentioned that, you know, part of the podcast is reframing the way that we think about inner city spaces, or just areas of concentrated poverty. And I know the general narrative would be, you know, you want to stay away. It's not a place that you want to be. But I mean, I don't know. It was pretty great today.
Yeah.
I'm sure it was pretty great on Thursday, which was Juneteenth, and it's going to be pretty great on Monday when I'm out there working.
Yeah.
You know, and, you know, there's things that come up that aren't awesome all the time, but it's I wouldn't say that it's still surprising to me, because we've lived here for 20 years, but it is still surprising to me that the narrative is still what the narrative is.
Yeah.
Because it's pretty great. And I don't, you know, in the book, I don't really give a recommendation necessarily, like, you know, everybody should move here, because I don't think drastic change is great for the neighborhood, but you know, slow, methodical progress towards something better would be great. But I wouldn't think twice about suggesting, if somebody was interested in living here. I mean, there wouldn't be anything that I could tell them. There wouldn't be, you know, and it kind of goes back, Meg, to the mindset thing. So let me loop back around to that. So, you know, I know in certain places that like there's challenges everywhere.
Yes.
There's challenges everywhere. And just like, you know, before you and I were a part of We Got This, I think that you and I would have spent at least some time thinking, I wish that we, you know, could have a say in an organization like that and do the same types of things that we're doing. And there would be some stress and some a little bit of angst associated with that. I think that the stress and the angst that I feel living here, it's different than the stress or the angst that I would feel living somewhere else, but it's not more here. Yeah. It's just a little different. Yeah. And it isn't different in necessarily a bad way. It's just different. It's kind of similar to, like, you know, if you, like, before we owned some of the buildings that we own, the rentals that we own, you know, I would have some longing to have those things.
Well, I think, like, when we even think about, like, why we bought the one behind us, there was just so much trash.
Sure.
Like, you know, like the the people didn't really take care of it very much, and now we have to like help take care of it.
Yeah.
You know,
and
so like
take care of it's a building that's taken care of.
Yeah,
now.
but it's either like you're annoyed that it's not taken care of, or you're annoyed that you have to take care of it.
Right.
Yeah.
But I would much rather take care of it
Yes,
than just
yes.
simply be annoyed.
Yeah. Be part of the change.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, you know, I guess just kind of wrap up that thought. You know, I think a great first step for anybody that might be, you know, interested in thinking a little bit differently about the inner city, just spend a little bit of time.
Yeah.
Spend a little bit of time. Come out to the garden. Come hang out. Meg, when we go to speak tomorrow to a volunteer organization, and I'm basically going to tell them that there's two different ways that they can be a part of the We and We Got This. The first is, you know, to physically do something there. We Got This is a great easy entry point for somebody. You can, you know, help out with the lunch crew. You can do like a special little project with the kids. You know, if you like to make mosaics, I don't know.
Like,
art.
We had a great example. Jan came out. She's she prunes fruit trees.
Yep.
And she took 4 kids and they sprayed trees.
Perfect.
With chalk. Chalk, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what you spray fruit trees with. So like the bugs don't like the chalk, but like you can eat chalk. Okay. You don't want to, but like you can't. It's not
bad for you.
It's not going to harm you at all.
Yeah.
It's not going to. You just basically you just like rub it off and it's off.
Okay.
But that was all of the kids who did it. Like they all got, because like she was like, okay, you guys are gonna get sprayed a little bit, and they were like, I don't know if I want that. And then they all had white on them somewhere, and they're like, look at me, I'm so cool, I got sprayed. And like they were like bragging to everyone, and like they thought it was like they were so prideful on, like they were so impressed with themselves, which was really great. But that was like a great opportunity where she just like showed up and she's like, I'll take 4 kids. And, you know, I was like, all right, this is a really big deal.
Right.
You know, like be good, you know, and she did great. Like everyone did great. Yeah.
So you can be a part of the We, you know, by physically, you know, being here, even if you just come and join a group. There's nothing wrong with that. That's fantastic. Yeah. Or, you know, if you decide, well, you know, I want to give more kids that opportunity. Yeah. Today we definitely turned away, like I said, probably about 30 kids. Yeah. And word kind of got out that we were full. Yeah. And so I know I saw some like turn around, you know, down the street. Yeah. You know, we know that we can physically accommodate more. But we, you know, do have budgetary constraints that would we wouldn't be I don't want to say frugal, but we wouldn't be making smart decisions if we just said, you know, the first 200 kids that show up, because 200 kids cost way more than 125 kids. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But if there are people out there that say, well, you know, I would love to see the capacity grow. You know, feel free to reach out at wegotthismke.com is the website, and there's a spot to donate there. Or if you know, are leaning, you know, between those two options, you're not totally sure, feel free to reach out at contact. This is an email, contact@wegotthismke.com.
And I think like you were talking about like a few good entry points to how do you want to change your thought process around inner city spaces, and being in the inner city is a wonderful opportunity to just see the differences, make some changes, you know, with the way you're thinking. And I think like as a mom, like in the summer, I'm always like, okay, like what are some things to do? And so when my kids were little, we used to like go to different libraries, and the different libraries they're all air conditioned. They're all nice and they're all different. And so like there are a lot of libraries in the city of Milwaukee that, you know, are wonderful. So I think like that's a great opportunity. And then Black-owned businesses. I feel like I haven't pushed, or I haven't done a plug for the Sherman Phoenix, and that's a wonderful, all sorts of different Black-owned businesses. A lot of them are startups. A lot of them, you know, are kind of new into business. So they're just wonderful areas to support.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.